"She's blocking my dad's wheelchair ramp," I blurted out. "He can't even get outside. All your dad needs to do is step to the side," she shot back. "Honestly, you're blowing this way out of proportion. He's old and frail, he relies on that wheelchair," I said. "This isn't a small thing. Move your car." She let out an exaggerated sigh, as if I just asked for something completely ridiculous. "Fine," she said. "But let me remind you, I'm the HOA president. I can make your life a lot harder if you keep bothering me like this." Then she slammed the door right in my face. That's how a so-called HOA Karen threatened me and my dad, two quiet, decent people who've always lived by society's rules. Yet, ironically, she's the one who won't let us have a moment's peace. Have you ever been singled out or pushed around in a place where you just wanted to belong? Let me tell you the story of what my dad and I have been through. Drop a comment with the number 9 if you're ready to hear it. Oh, and don't forget, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of the tense twists still ahead. Wishing you a peaceful day. I'm Kate Hollister, 34 years old, a male nurse working at the community hospital in Ravenwood. I grew up in a little town nestled between endless fields called Sage Hollow, where peace used to be the thing I cherished most. Now, I live in a suburban neighborhood in Briarstone, hoping to escape the constant pressure of back-to-back shifts. My job's a non-stop test of strength and patience, but I never imagined my home, the one place I wanted some comfort, would turn into an unrelenting battlefield. I'll never forget the moment I realized my house was under siege. I just finished a grueling 15-hour night shift at the hospital, body aching, mind foggy from tending to a flood of patients. All I wanted was to sink into the couch in my living room and steal a few fragile hours of sleep. Pain radiated from my hips up to my neck. Every step felt like dragging an invisible boulder. But as I pulled into my quiet street that morning, what I saw made me slam on the brakes. A dark gray SUV parked smack in the middle of my driveway. My driveway. At first, I thought maybe someone had a health emergency or a car breakdown, needing a spot to stop. But there was no note, no one nearby with an apologetic look. Just that SUV sitting there, like it owned the place. Annoyed but trying to stay calm, I parked a few yards away, silently cursing the lack of public parking around here. I stepped out, hands trembling slightly as I scribbled a quick note. "Hi, this is private property. Please don't park here again. Thanks." I tucked it under the windshield wiper, then trudged inside, heart racing a little from the unexpected hassle. My dad, Harold, 82 years old, has been staying with me for a few weeks. He struggles to get around, relying completely on a clear path to come and go without wrestling with his cane. I kept that driveway spotless just so he wouldn't have to worry. Sinking into my chair, I told myself it was probably a one-time fluke. Little did I know that SUV was about to drag me into a mess that wouldn't let up. I woke up after 5 restless hours of sleep, eyes still burning from exhaustion. Peering outside, I saw that SUV still lounging there. My polite note? Crumpled and tossed into the bushes by the driveway. Anger flared up inside me, hot and sharp. I had to get my dad to a doctor's appointment in 2 hours, and I needed that path clear to help him to the car if he needed it. Swallowing my frustration, I wrote another note, this time firmer. "This is private property. No parking here. Final warning." I slapped it on the windshield, convinced no one would ignore it now. But was it ever that simple? The next morning, I stepped out to make a quick 10-minute run to the store. That SUV was still there, like it was mocking me. My final warning? Torn to bits, scattered across the ground. I stood there, breath heavy, patience gone. My dad needed that path to move without pain. Why would someone be this thoughtless? A neighbor's guest? Some stranger who thought my driveway was public land? I told myself it's time to do something. 2 days later, I gathered my nerve to confront the owner face to face. The chance came one early morning. I was in the yard, staring at that SUV, my mind spinning. Could I call a tow truck without legal blowback? Right then, someone stepped out of the house across the street. Karen, the new HOA president of Briarstone. Blonde hair cropped short, crisp light blue shirt, a scowl like the whole world owed her an apology. I'd heard whispers from neighbors about her over-the-top strictness, fining people for grass an inch too tall, sending notices for tiny infractions, but I'd never dealt with her until now. Karen marched toward me, eyes locked on me, brimming with tension. "What are you doing near my car?" she barked, her voice cutting through the morning stillness. I froze, couldn't believe my ears. Her car? So this was the woman who'd been hogging my driveway? I tried to keep my voice steady, though I was boiling inside. "This is your SUV?" I asked, forcing the words out with the last shred of politeness I had. Karen crossed her arms, smirking with smug satisfaction. "Yep, street parking around here is a nightmare, and I've got important HOA business to handle. So I borrowed your driveway a couple of times. You don't use it all day anyway." My jaw locked, teeth grinding painfully. "But you're parking on my property without asking, and throwing out every note I've left. My dad's old. He needs this path to get in and out easily." She let out a scoffing laugh, dripping with disdain. "Listen, I'm the HOA president. I know the rules. You don't own the whole street," she said, jabbing a finger at my driveway. "If you were that worried, you'd have come to me sooner instead of waiting till now." My face burned, fury rising beyond control. "I tried being nice with those notes you trashed." Karen shrugged, climbing into her SUV. "If you want me gone, you'll need to do more than scribble on scraps of paper." Then she slammed the door, revved the engine, and peeled out with a screech of tires. "So this is the HOA president?" My irritation turned into a blazing resentment. For the next 6 days, Karen stayed away. I thought maybe she'd realized how serious I was. My dad, Harold, relaxed too, no longer dodging obstacles on narrow streets. But that calm didn't even last 8 days. One night, I got home from an 18-hour shift at the hospital, exhausted to the point of collapse. Yet as I rolled into the neighborhood, there it was, Karen's SUV, not just in my driveway, but parked so blatantly it blocked the wheelchair ramp I'd set up for my dad. He was inside, but if he needed to get out in a hurry, we'd be stuck. I nearly lost it, storming across the street, chest pounding like it might explode as I banged on Karen's door. Her porch light flicked on. She opened it, her face radiating annoyance, like she wanted to yell, "You again! She's blocking my dad's wheelchair ramp." I burst out, barely holding myself together. "He can't get outside." Karen rolled her eyes, like I was bothering her over something trivial. "Your dad can just step to the side," she said. "Come on. Be honest. You're making way too big a deal out of this." I clenched my fists, silently counting to 4 to keep from losing it. "He's old and frail," I said. "He needs that wheelchair. This isn't a small thing. Move your car." She let out a dramatic sigh, as if I just asked for something totally outrageous. "Fine," she snapped. "But let me be clear. I'm the HOA president. I can make your life a lot tougher if you keep pestering me like this." Then she slammed the door right in my face. A few minutes later, she drove off. But I just stood there, in my own driveway, staring at the greasy oil stains her SUV left behind. My stomach twisted, her threat still ringing in my ears. The next morning, my dad's nurse, Maricela, came by for her scheduled visit. We were in the living room, talking about Harold's meds, when a loud noise erupted outside. I rushed to the window, heart pounding, and saw Karen back again, messing with something near my mailbox. I stepped outside fast, confusion turning to fury. She'd slapped a bright orange notice on my mailbox, labeled HOA violation. It claimed I'd left hazardous material in the driveway, pointing to the oil stains from her car. "You can't fine me for something you caused," I yelled, snatching the paper off. "This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen." Karen stared me down, her eyes daring me to push back. "Oh, just wait," she said. "As president, I can fine any violation in this neighborhood. And an oily driveway? That's definitely on the list." I could hardly believe her nerve. "That oil leaked from your car," I said. "You're the one who—" She cut me off, raising a hand like she was above it all. "This is your property," she said. You're responsible for keeping it clean, no excuses. Clean it up in 5 days, or you'll get a fine. My hands shook with rage. Maricela, my dad's nurse, stepped out from the front door, her voice soft but worried. Is everything okay? She asked. Karen shot her an irritated glance, then turned and stormed off without a word. I felt humiliated, cornered, my chest tight with anger and dread about how this might wear my dad down. I made up my mind I had to act. I was done with pointless warnings, tired of arguing in circles. Karen was taking this too far, and I started wondering what legal rights did I have to fight back. That afternoon, still fuming, I called an old college buddy, Soren Delgado. He's a lawyer now, working at a local firm, specializing in property disputes and HOA headaches. When I laid out the whole story, Soren practically choked in disbelief. This is straight-up trespassing, he said firmly. She has no right to park in your driveway without permission, HOA president or not. If she does it again, you can absolutely call a tow truck. That's your legal right as a homeowner. But she's the HOA president, I said again. She threatened to mess with me, hit me with fines. Soren chuckled over the phone. HOA rules don't trump personal property law, he said. And if she's threatening you, that's harassment. Start documenting, take pictures, keep your notes, log the time she parks there. With proof, you can tow her car no problem. Trust me, I've seen this a dozen times. That call lit a fire under me. I'd been patient, leaving notes, facing her head on, but Karen didn't care. My dad's safety was on the line. Next time her SUV showed up in my driveway, I'd follow Soren's advice to the letter. I didn't have to wait long. 3 days later, I got back from a quick 15-minute grocery run, and there it was, Karen's SUV, parked bold as day, taking up my whole driveway like she owned it. My dad was expecting a home health aide that afternoon, and we needed that path clear. It was time. I pulled out my phone, the number for a local tow company already in my contacts. I snapped a few pics of the SUV blocking the way, then dialed. Hi, I've got an unauthorized car in my driveway, I told the dispatcher, keeping my voice steady, then gave them the address. They showed up fast, within 12 minutes. Watching that tow truck hook up Karen's precious SUV, I felt a strange mix of relief and quiet triumph. My heart raced, part nerves, part satisfaction. I told myself I was in the right. She'd left me no choice. 18 minutes later, the SUV was gone. I stood by the window, peeking out, half expecting Karen to storm over any second, but she didn't show. I let out a breath, hoping the public embarrassment might finally stop her nonsense. That night, a furious pounding rattled my door, so loud I nearly dropped the glass of water in my hand. Here we go, I muttered, walking over to open it. Karen stood there, face flushed red, clutching her phone like she wanted to crush it. You had my car towed, she screamed, her voice cracking with rage. I leaned against the doorframe, staying calm. Yep, I said. You parked in my driveway again. Karen stood there, chest heaving, her trembling finger jabbing at me. That's illegal, she shouted. I had important HOA documents in there. You can't just take my car like that. I raised an eyebrow, holding my ground. Illegal? I said. No, you're the one trespassing. I've warned you how many times now? She sucked in a sharp breath, her face glowing red. I'm the HOA president, she yelled. I was doing official business. You've got no authority here. I let out a heavy sigh, patience nearly gone. HOA president or not, does that mean you can park wherever you want in my driveway? I said. Let me spell it out. HOA rules don't override private property law. Karen opened her mouth, then snapped it shut, her mind clearly scrambling for a comeback. Suddenly, she yanked out her phone, like she'd struck gold. Fine, she said. I'm calling the cops. You're harassing me. Her hands shook so bad she nearly dropped it as she dialed. I shrugged. Go ahead, I said. I'll wait. 10 tense minutes later, 2 police officers rolled up. Karen rushed them like they were her personal rescue squad. Officers, Thank God you're here, she cried. He towed my car for no reason. This is theft. The taller officer, Lennox, sighed. All right, ma'am, calm down. What happened here? Karen flailed her arms, pointing wildly at me. He took my car, she cried. I parked here because there's never any space on the street. I've got important HOA business, and he just keeps harassing me. Lennox turned to me. Did you have her car towed? I nodded, handing over the photos I'd snapped of her SUV clogging my driveway, time after time. Lennox glanced at Karen, then back at me. Ma'am, he said, that driveway's private property. He's got every right to have an unauthorized vehicle towed. Karen's face went pale, then flushed red with rage. No way, she snapped. I'm the HOA president. The other officer, Elias, let out a tired sigh. Ma'am, that doesn't give you the right to park on someone else's land, he said. If you want your car back, you'll need to pay the tow fee. Karen gasped, her reaction so dramatic I thought she might faint. Pay? She sputtered. You're telling me I have to pay for this? Lennox crossed his arms. That's how towing works, he said simply. Karen trembled with fury. This is a setup, she shouted. You're taking his side. Elias frowned. You called us claiming an illegal tow, he said. Keep making false reports, and you could end up with a fine yourself. Karen huffed, realizing she'd lost this round. In a desperate pivot, she turned back to Lennox. So that's it? She demanded. You're just letting him get away with this? He should be arrested. What kind of cops are you? Do you even know who I am? I run this neighborhood. When I say someone's breaking the rules, you're supposed to listen to me. Lennox raised an eyebrow. Ma'am, the law doesn't care who you are, he said. This is his driveway, his property, his rights. I'd suggest brushing up on the law instead of making up your own. Karen clenched her fists, her face twisting with frustration. She spun toward me, her eyes blazing with hate. You'll regret this, she hissed. This isn't over. I gave her a faint smile. I'm sure it isn't, I said. She stormed off, nearly tripping in her rage. The officers nodded at me before heading out. I took a long breath, savoring the rare moment of a Karen-free driveway, even if it was just for now. For the next 9 days, Karen stayed clear of my driveway. She avoided me, only sneaking annoyed glances whenever we stepped outside at the same time. I naively thought it might be over. I focused on taking care of my dad, Harold, who had surgery coming up in a few days. At the same time, I pushed through my hospital shifts, each hour draining me, body and soul. The last thing I needed was more trouble from Karen. But trouble always finds you when someone's out to pick a fight. One peaceful Saturday morning, I woke up planning to take my dad to a checkup. I pulled back the curtains and my jaw dropped. Not only was Karen's SUV back in my driveway, but another car was parked right behind it, blocking the whole way out. It was unbearable. I rushed outside, anger and worry boiling inside me. My dad's appointment was just 90 minutes away. I didn't have time for Karen's insanity. The second car, a little hatchback, probably belonged to a friend or relative of hers. How could she think my driveway was a public parking lot? My dad appeared at the door, leaning on his cane, his voice shaky. Everything okay, son? I clenched my fists, trying to sound calm. Karen's at it again, Dad, I said. 2 cars this time. He sighed, shaking his head. That woman doesn't respect anybody, he muttered. I put an arm around him. Don't worry, I said. I'll handle it. I knocked on Karen's door, my chest burning with frustration. No answer. I called her name, even asked a neighbor if they'd seen her around. No one knew where she was. Whether she was dodging me or genuinely gone, I didn't care anymore. I had to act. My dad needed that path clear to get to the car, and Soren's advice echoed in my mind. You've got the legal right to tow any vehicle on your property without permission. So I did. I called the tow company again, telling them I now had 2 unauthorized cars clogging my driveway. They laughed over the phone, remembering the last time, and said they'd send 2 trucks right over. 25 minutes later, both tow trucks rolled up. The drivers shook their heads, amazed at how shamelessly the cars were parked. They hooked up Karen's SUV first, then the hatchback. A flicker of nerves hit me. Karen would lose it for sure, but the relief outweighed it. She'd shown zero respect for my property or my dad's condition. I'd had enough. Watching those trucks pull away, taking both cars with them, I could hardly believe my eyes. My hands shook slightly from the tension, but a fierce satisfaction surged inside me. Karen could spin it however she wanted. The law was on my side. Her rage hit right on cue. 80 minutes later, just as I'd figured, I was helping my dad, Harold, with his physical therapy exercises in the living room when the screech of brakes pierced the air outside. Peeking through the window, I saw Karen practically charging up my driveway, her face twisted with fury. Phone pressed hard against her ear. I stepped onto the porch, bracing myself. "Where's my car?" she screamed, jabbing a finger at me like I was on trial. "Both your cars got towed," I said calmly. "Parking in my driveway is trespassing. I'm out of patience." Her face flashed with shock, then boiled over into pure outrage. You dared to do it again," she stammered. "I'm the HOA president. This is harassment. I'm calling the cops." She paced back and forth, babbling into her phone, spitting out a frantic rant about being targeted, spittle flying as she demanded the police show up right now. My dad, Harold, stood at the doorway, shaking his head in disbelief. When the cops arrived, the same two from last time, Karen rushed at them, arms flailing wildly. "He's towed my car twice now," she cried. "That's got to be illegal. Arrest him." Officer Lennox sighed, turning to me. "Got those pictures again?" I nodded, holding up my phone. "Two cars, parked in my private driveway, unauthorized, blocking our way," I said. "Same as before." Lennox looked at Karen, then back at me. "Ma'am," he said, "like we told you, this is his property. He's got the right to tow anything parked there without permission." Karen let out a choked, angry yelp. "But I'm the HOA president," she snapped. "That doesn't mean you can park wherever you please," Officer Elias replied, his voice steady. Karen started panting, screaming that I was ruining her life, that she'd bury me with HOA fines, that I'd regret this forever. Meanwhile, the two officers just stood there, looking like they wanted to wrap this up and get out fast. I crossed my arms, standing still, letting her spew her venom. She was so mad she couldn't even string a full sentence together. Her fury peaked when she realized both cars were hauled off to the impound lot. She'd have to pay towing fees and storage costs for both. I'd never seen anyone so enraged. She shook with anger, face beet red, eyes welling up as it hit her there was no quick fix. The officers calmly confirmed I'd done nothing illegal, then left, leaving Karen in a total meltdown. She spun toward me, her voice cracking with frustration. "I hope you're happy," she spat, stepping closer. Ignoring my dad, Harold, watching from the door. "You've just made an enemy you can't handle." I stayed quiet, heart pounding, body tense. Part of me felt a twinge of pity, thinking of the embarrassment she was facing, but mostly, I was just exhausted. All I'd done was protect my property and my dad's well-being. Her phone buzzed, probably the impound lot calling about the fees. She glanced at it, muttering a string of curses. Our eyes locked again. In hers, I saw raw fury, but also helplessness, knowing she couldn't change a thing. She opened her mouth to say more, then stopped, turning away, without another word. She stormed off, shoulders trembling with rage. I watched her go, her face hardening with resentment, until she disappeared down the street. I took a deep breath, heading inside. My dad rested a hand on my shoulder, his eyes full of concern, but I just shook my head, leaning against the wall as the tension slowly melted away. Karen's outburst was every bit as dramatic as I'd expected. And while it wouldn't be our last clash, it was definitely a turning point in this HOA war. She'd chosen to fight, and so had I, but this time the law was on my side. So, what do you think of this story? A legal expert put it this way: the clash between Kate Hollister and Karen highlights a real issue in today's world: the collision between personal property rights and the misuse of power in community groups like HOAs. Karen's behavior, taking over Cade's driveway, threatening fines, and ignoring the law, reflects a growing trend where some people assume they're above the rules, stirring up tension and resentment in neighborhoods. On the flip side, Cade's persistence, leaning on property law and solid evidence, shows how the legal system can shield individual rights against unreasonable overreach. It points to a bigger social problem. Ignorance or defiance of the law can spark unnecessary conflict, especially in communities where cooperation and mutual respect should matter most. Ain't that the truth? From this story, we can pull out a positive lesson. In messy disputes, knowing your legal rights, standing firm with lawful steps, like Cade did with towing and photos, and keeping emotions in check can sort things out effectively. Acting within the law doesn't just protect you, it sends a loud message about respecting personal boundaries in a community. This story's just for entertainment and learning. No aim to judge, criticize, or offend anyone or any group. It's a made-up scenario meant to spark some insight. What do you think of how Cade handled it? Drop a comment below with your thoughts. And don't forget, hit like, share, and subscribe to catch more wild stories like this. Thanks for sticking with this video till the end. Wishing you a peaceful day, and I'll see you in the next one.